321, 321. Welcome everyone to this meeting of the Joint Committee of the North Essex Parking Partnership. As this is the annual meeting, the first order of business is to elect a chair. My name's Owen Howell, I'm the clerk of the committee, so at this point I will ask members to put forward nominations for the chairmanship of the Joint Committee. And just to let members know, if you're here as a substitute member, you can still put forward your full-time member from your authority as a nomination. All nominations need a seconder to be valid, and then if we have more than one nomination, we will take them in alphabetic order of surname, I'll say, because at the moment, I think given the width of the room, if we go the normal way we would do it, which would be to go for the first person who puts his hand up or her hand up, I'm not going to be able to see if there are two people putting their hand up, so we'll do it in order of surname. So if I could ask for nominations for the chairmanship of the Joint Committee, please. Councillor Pearce. Thank you. I have that as a nomination, and can I have a seconder for that, please?
I'll second.
I have Councillor Spray seconding that. And do we have any further nominations for the chairmanship? I'm not seeing any hands raised, so I'll go straight to the vote. All those who are in favour of Councillor Honeywood being appointed chairman of the Joint Committee for the 24-25 year, please raise your hand now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I make that 5 votes for. All those who vote against that proposal, seeing no votes raised, and any abstentions? I have 1 abstention. So with 5 votes in favour, Councillor Honeywood has been appointed chair of the Joint Committee for this forthcoming year. So if you'd like to take the chairman's position, and then I will let you far more capably chair the rest of the meeting.
Okay, thank you for your support on appointing me as chairman of this committee. It is my first time here, and I've got a lot of new faces and names to learn, and I'm sure I'll pick that up quite quickly. Could I move to item 2, please, which is the election of vice chairman, and do we have any nominations? No. Okay, do we have a seconder, please? Okay, Councillor Barry, the one person I do know in the room. Okay, are there any other nominations? Okay then, so we'll move to the vote on that. Is those in favour? Those against? And anyone wish to abstain? Okay, thank you very much for that. Item 3 is welcoming introductions. So this part, I think I may make a suggestion that as I'm new, and there may well be others, that we go round and just say who everybody is. So my name's Paul Honeywood. I'm here on behalf of Essex County Council, and I live in Clacton. So we'll go to my left.
Thank you very much. My name's Richard Walker. I'm Head of Service for Parking for Colchester and for the Parking Partnership.
I'm Jake England. I'm the Group Operating Manager for the North Essex Parking Partnership.
Hello, I'm Trevor Degville and I'm currently the Group Development Manager for the North Essex Parking Partnership.
Hello, Councillor Neil Hargreaves from Uttlesford.
Hello, I'm Sarah Lewin. I'm the Economic Development Manager at Uttlesford, which includes parking.
Hi, I'm Jo Baines. I'm Head of Network and Safety and Traffic Manager for Essex.
Hi, I'm Amelia Hoke, Client Officer for Epping Forest District Council.
Good afternoon, Councillor Gabrielle Spray. I'm the Cabinet Member for Planning on Braintree District Council and representing Councillor Butland this afternoon.
Hi, I'm Dean James. I'm the Client Officer for Harlow District Council.
Nikki Purse, Cabinet Member for Environment, Harlow District Council.
Mel Randall, Client Officer for Colchester.
Martin Goss, I'm the Cabinet Member at Colchester for Neighbourhoods and Waste, which also includes parking.
Hi, I'm Andy Neppine. I'm Public Realm Manager and Client Officer for Tendring.
Good afternoon. My name is Mick Burry. I'm Cabinet Member for Leisure and Public Realm for Tendring District Council.
Owen Howell, Clerk to the Committee.
Okay, thank you everyone for that. I'll now move to the next item, which is item 4, apologies and substitutions. Okay, yeah, we're just introducing ourselves. If you'd just like to say who you are and where you're from.
Yes, my name is Matthews. I'm the District Councillor for Epping Forest District Council and portfolio holder for estates and commercial, substituting for Ken Williams today.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're just moving to apologies and substitutions.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as noted, Councillor Spray is here as substitute for Councillor Butland and Councillor Matthews, substitute for Councillor Williamson, and we've had apologies from both missing joint committee members.
Okay, thank you very much for that. The next is declarations of interest. Does anyone wish to declare any interest at this time? Obviously, if something does come up during the meeting, please do say, and we'll arrange for that to be recorded. The next item is have your say. Bear with me a moment, please. This is, I invite members of the public or attending councillors if they wish to speak, either on an item on the agenda or a general matter. I understand that a petition has been received from Whitlam Town Council and will be presented.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we received this petition from Whitlam Town Council. I'll read out the wording of the petition and then present it to you. Whitlam Town Council's petition states, it's a petition supporting Whitlam Town Council's decision to oppose the charges intended to be implemented by the North Essex Parking Partnership. The North Essex Parking Partnership intend to convert current free parking spaces in Whittam Newland Street to paid ones, which the Town Council actively opposes. Because the use of these spaces will be no different, converting free spaces to charged will do nothing to reduce congestion, nor will it improve air quality. it's highly likely that access to services will be adversely affected, as will be the economic vitality and vibrancy of the town centre and Newland Street. NEPP's goal of embracing technology will have an adverse effect on those who do not have electronic payment facilities. The Council therefore opposes the NEPP's proposed new charges as they fail to meet the partnership's policy framework. There's no evidence, particularly with regard to the economic vitality and vibrancy of Witham Town Centre and Newland Street, that any research has been undertaken to demonstrate that the net income increase in charges will not be adversely offset by the reduction in economic activity from the town centre and high street traders. If you agree with the points raised by Witham Town Council and are against the conversion of these spaces to paid parking, please sign this petition. So this petition I present to you from Witham Town Council.
Okay, thank you for that. It's my understanding that this will be reviewed and brought forward to another meeting?
Yes, I think Richard Walker can give a better explanation than I can, but yes, that's generally.
Yes, it's a previous meeting where the original proposal was made, the decision was called in, and we were asked to carry out some enhanced consultation on these schemes. We've done that in part in sequence, and the first of those enhanced consultation results are in today's meeting, in one of the forthcoming reports. This and some of the others don't feature in today's report at all, but they will come back to a meeting later in the year.
Okay, thank you very much for that. The next is under have your say. Any speakers who wish to address the committee?
We have first.
Okay, thank you. So the first one I've been informed of is Mr. Peter Green. Thank you, Mr. Green. I understand you have 3 minutes to ask a question and then we'll receive a response.
This isn't a question, this is a statement. I've lived in Witham all of my 77 years, and I heard someone say from the council, here Essex County Council, that because of the way the cars park, they interfere with traffic flow. They do not. If you come in from Witham to Witham from the Chelmsford end, on the left-hand side, all the cars park at right angles to the main drag. On the other side of the road, they just park parallel to the pavement. As I understand it, and the only reason you want to do all this is to make some more money, for which we've got to pay for. There's no need to do that. We're a small town. And we haven't got the shops anymore that we used to have. There's no co-op. There's no Wool, well, Wool's gone anyway. But most of what we've got now is a few shops, and then there's pubs, hairdressers, and that kind of thing. A few takeaways. But the shops we used to have long gone. We've now got Lidl's and the other German one up a bit further up, and it is not the same. Our Tesco's can't get any bigger because they don't own the land that it sits on. So in my case, occasionally I have to go down to somewhere else to get what I want because Tesco's don't have it in Witham. The main thing is though, where the road is narrow, that's okay because there are traffic lights there. So you just go either up or down, whichever you want to do. Then you get the other side of Witham to where the cinema, well, it used to be the cinema, now the library. You can park there in certain places and also across the road as well. It does not in any way, shape or form alter the traffic flow in any way. We have a lot of big trucks coming through now, but even they don't alter the traffic flow. And really and truthfully, as I understand it, all it is that Essex County Council wants more money, so they think they'll come and charge us for doing it, and other towns as well. So, as far as I'm concerned, I am not going to pay to park in my own street, what I have done for the last umpteen years. As far as I'm concerned, that's a no-no. We're a small town. We're not Colchester or Chelmsford or something like that. It's a small town, but we happen to have the old A12 go through there. That, in a nutshell, is that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. You said it was a statement rather than a question?
Well, there is one thing. Why do you need to charge us for parking in our own high street?
Are you able to respond?
So just to clarify, I think what Richard, Head of Service, was saying earlier, the initial proposals were just there ultimately to create efficiencies within the North Essex Parking Partnership and how parking is managed in and across all of the districts that we operate. So that includes Witham within the Braintree district. And we only propose some of those sites, and the actual informal consultation for this particular site will be coming later in the year. So, I suspect, some of your feedback can go straight into that consultation process for NEPP and or NEPP officers and also local members to consider at that point. But yeah, it's mostly for the efficiency point, as we've discussed at this meeting previous.
As far as I'm concerned, it's still what I said it was. The reasons why you want to do it doesn't matter really as far as I'm concerned. It's you're happen to help the ruin of our town. Every town's struggling now at the moment, ever since COVID and before. Now, towns like Witham lost shops and everything else. That just goes with it. So parking a few cars in the high street and then charging them for it, it's not going to help us one little bit. All the shops, Yeah, and also we have a big car park in Collingwood Road. That itself is never full now. So why should we bother about having cars? Why should we have cars, having to pay, or the owners having to pay, to park in the high street? Just to appease someone or put some more money in Essex County's pockets. For me, that doesn't work.
Okay. Well, thank you for your comments on that. As I said, they will be included in the consultation, and I will be looking at that with interest as it develops.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Nick Chilvers.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Howell, for faithfully recording my submission regarding Colchester in the minutes of the March NEPP meeting. Unfortunately, because of Harlow's logistical problems, I couldn't hear or see the reaction to them from the committee. Never mind, this time some easy questions. Questions from somebody, like most of the public, who's unfamiliar with local government speak. Can you define, please, in the context of on-street pay-to-park proposals, what constitutes an enhanced consultation? What actually goes on? Who do you talk to before it's launched to the wider public? The term stakeholders keeps coming up. Who are they? Can we have some examples, please? Who constitutes a stakeholder? Looking at page 63 of your papers today, there were no comments to Colchester's plans for Middleborough, Oxford Road and St John's Green. Now that does surprise me. Who did you canvass? Did it include ward councillors who've been busy with elections, local and national, where the Green Party and the Anti-Car Brigade have a strong hold? Did it include direct contact with the St Giles Freemasons Lodge, the central one, in Colchester at St John's Green. The long-standing Nepalese community, Gurkhas, who live in around Abbeygate's house at St John's Green, in their language. The landlord of the popular Abbey Arms at St John's Green. The head and the Parent Teachers Association of St John's Green Junior and Infant School. The owner of the popular Pavilion restaurant at Middleborough. Do these qualify as stakeholders? Did they not have anything to say on behalf of their members, clients and community? And if that part of the consultation hasn't happened yet, then I suggest you use a targeted approach to reaching these organisations, an enhanced one. And in the consultation questionnaire, will you seek opinions on drivers only being able to park with the app? And will the committee see a draft of the consultation questionnaire before it goes out? I can see you've got a lot of business to wade through, so can I ask the Chair to get answers to these simple questions now, or at least make sure they get answered during the agenda item? Now, I say that because my experience of some committee meetings is that the Chair will say, I'm sure your questions will be answered in the forthcoming discussion, and they never are. So I'll follow the rest of your meeting on YouTube, look forward to seeing councillors' points and queries. If it goes ahead, then at least give them a free hour. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. There was a fair number of questions in there. I'll give you that. I don't know if an officer would like to respond, or considering the number of questions, whether we'd like to write to the gentleman.
Like them on a piece of paper, I've got spare.
Pardon?
So I've got the question right.
Mr. Chilver's microphone.
Sorry. I can give you the list of questions if it helps.
Yes, that would be a big help, I think. Would you be happy with a written reply, considering the number of questions that you've...
I'll be happy with a written reply, given that I've had trouble to come here. But I would like to think that at least the two obvious ones, the what is an enhanced consultation, and who are the stakeholders in this setup, who you reach out to, that could come from anybody now, I should think.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. Are we able to?
Thank you, Chairman. Very helpful.
Are we able to respond to those 2 points? And then I'll take the questions from the gentleman, and I'm sure we can provide him with a more detailed reply.
Yeah. Chair, could I just ask a quick question on the question? Is it only parking using an app, or is it app or credit card?
It will be my permit, so the same as what you've got in your car park.
So just pure app parking, not credit card.
Telephone, credit card by telephone or by app or online.
Not.
But I think what's
involves
proposed,
you have to have a phone.
But again, we're at very early stages of informal consultation, so that's to be discussed if it's of interest. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chilvers, for those questions. Yeah, no, please come back. So just to introduce, I think, the enhanced consultation point to begin with. So this is something that was born from the call-in that we had after the meeting in February. At the Harlow meeting, that's when we clarified that the enhanced consultation will take a very localised approach. But at a minimum, what we agreed at the committee was that it would include the client officer and the portfolio holder for that district where the site resides. It would include the ward and county members for where that site also resides. And then also any, I say stakeholders, and I'll come on to what we mean by stakeholders in a second, but any stakeholders of that group of people then decide that they feel are relevant to that attendance. So a great example for everybody, we've mentioned Dedham within the report. They're not come back to, the results come back to this report, they'll come back to a future one, but Dedham Parish Council, for example, wanted to be involved in that process. So that's a great example of what a stakeholder is. But again, it's that group of people to decide as a minimum, that enhanced consultation phase. But just to clarify that this isn't the only point of consultation, there is a formal stage of consultation as well. But I'll let Trevor talk about some of the more particulars around the Colchester sites, if that's okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think for the Colchester ones, we have we've contacted ward councillors, and councillors, as Jake said, we've also letter dropped to the residents where appropriate. Okay now? Okay, so I said we've contacted local councillors, ward councillors, and we have, where appropriate, letter dropped the residents in the vicinity. As Jake has just alluded to there, I think it's important we realise what stage we're at. This is an informal consultation to decide whether to go into the formal consultation. It's not making a decision yet about whether paid parking should be introduced or not. It's just about whether we should go further and then advertise it. So the formal consultation, which again would be enhanced, would involve going to all the stakeholders again, all the residents, but we're not at that stage, and the same, we weren't with the Whitton ones either. Today, the report is just looking at whether we should go further and actually formally advertise.
Move to item 5, which is minutes, to approve the minutes as recorded. Are we happy to, we need a proposer and a seconder for the minutes? Thanks, Mick. And I got a question. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's actually, well, a couple of things on the minutes. One, I don't know if it's the right place to do it, but to make an apology for the resolution that's minuted on page 9 of 86 about the Joint Committee receiving additional reports at its next meeting. That was as a result of my submissions, and unfortunately, whilst there has been significant amounts of work done on the changes and proposals, we haven't had sufficient time to process it through and get officer and legal opinion as to a way forward. So apologies to the committee for that, and I will be looking to bring that back at the next meeting. And I think it's a bit of clarification really, because there's something in the minutes that I don't remember being said, and it's sort of page 10, 11, the top of page 11, I think, where the bottom of the paragraph, it says, the head of parking explained that a cautious estimate had been kept until sustained staff recruitment was seen. Now, this is about the estimates of income. And it says there had been a net gain of 5 CEOs, that's the enforcement officers, and a significant increase in PCNs being issued. This had been going on for over the past 4 months, but had not been added to the projections as time had been taken to ensure this was not a temporary change. I'm sorry, but I do not recall that being said, and in the context of that meeting, when it was, there was clearly tendering council had a position that it may in fact be putting in notice to leave the partnership based upon the figures and projected figures and the finances that we were being given to read. And as I say, I didn't pick it up at the time. If it was said, I must have missed it. But to see it now in the minutes, I think it's incredibly significant that that we had a gain and an increase in PCNs being issued, but this had not been put into the projected figures because, as I said, my cabinet and my officers, we were discussing our position based upon the figures that we had, not the ones that were clearly not being given to us at the time. So I think I would just like to ask for some explanation of how that situation came about. And at the time, if I had known that, I think the discussions that I would have had with cabinet colleagues would have been very different. So can somebody correct me if I'm wrong? Obviously it was said because it's been recorded there, but I honestly don't recall it being said and given the significance perhaps that it has now. So that's just, I don't know whether that's an observation or a suggestion. Change the minutes, but I don't know if anybody else remembers that.
Is any, can someone respond? I wasn't here, so I can't.
I think that was attributed to me. I think the point was around the forecasts and our certainty in having been in a slide in the wrong direction for so long that we need to be able to substantiate the position. You know, we had these extra civil enforcement officers being recruited. We wanted to get to a position where we were sure what was happening. We're very sure what's happening now. I think that was what was attributed to me.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have any comments?
Yes. Thank you, Chair. It's just to emphasise what Councillor Barry said about bringing back the contractual matters to next time. We have done a lot of work on this. We've drafted out what we think it should be. It went to legal. I think legal and sat on it. Would that be correct? And we are in the situation, I'll say this because other people wouldn't know because you weren't here, NEPP is operating outside of its contract. There's supposed to be a £500,000 reserve, otherwise new work stops. Everyone's agreed that's unreasonable. We are outside the contract. There's other matters that are clearly not right in the contract, including the fact that Essex retained all their rights to do things. And as tendering found out, Essex just tried to come along and put pay and display on all the seaside parking arrangements without going through NEPP, and they would have kept the cash. That is an unreasonable thing. When you're delegating from highways or delegating a function to somebody else, you don't keep the powers to do that. You have step-in rights, but you don't keep the powers. So that's the reason why it is important that this all be clarified and sorted out, and financial matters as well, which are best done in the contract clean and not argued out in the future. So I'll say that for the benefit of people who weren't here before. So we do need, please, for it to come back next time. And Essex, who is taking responsibility for getting Essex to do the legal stuff? Who does that lie with?
So I can chase them, but I didn't know it was with them. So who has it gone to in legal? Do we know? Is it full?
I can answer that. Yeah, sorry if I can answer that. No, it hasn't gone to anybody at Essex Legal. I meant it was going through our local legal in preparation to go to Essex Legal. So I think we saw that there was a route, and it proved to be slightly more complex than we anticipated.
So Essex Legal are not being criticised. It's with different legal. So it's with Councillor Barry. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for that. I think I get that.
Just a point of clarity, should that not come back to this committee? Yeah.
Yes, the idea is it goes, we put the words together. The decision was previous time not to bring it for a discussion here until legal had been through. Otherwise, legal might say, you're not having that, not having that. No point discussing something we can't have. So that was the logic to going through a proper process.
I think my understanding is it will come from tendering, having advice from their legal, go to Essex for their view before, and then come to us. So we're fully aware of what we're dealing with. Okay. After that, are we happy with the minutes? Do we need a proposer and seconder, or we just agree the minutes? Okay, can we have a show of hands? That's fine. Okay. We've got 3 in favour. Do we have any against? I better put my hand up on 4 in favour. I forgot me. We've got 4 in favour. Do we have any against? Any abstentions? I don't know why I put my hand up. I just didn't want to feel left out. Right, the next item is urgent items, and I've been informed that there are none. Moving to the next item, which is item 7, annual governance review and internal audit, which I believe is being presented by Hayley McGrath. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, there's a lot of new faces in the room I haven't met before. Some of you I have. So for those that I haven't met, my name's Hayley. I'm the Corporate Governance Manager and Deputy Monitoring Officer here at Colchester. And obviously my role for Colchester is to manage all sorts of these types of issues. But also I have a responsibility to report to this committee and work for this committee in terms of giving you assurance about your governance arrangements. So this is an opportunity for any of the partners to raise any issues or concerns relating to governance. My role is not to defend Colchester's position. My role is to support you in your governance arrangements so that you can take assurance back to your own authorities. Some of the issues that I want to cover today, and I bring an annual report on governance, and that looks at the annual governance statement and internal audit. Some of you may well be used to that process in your own authorities, so every authority has to produce an annual governance statement. The partnership has no legal requirement to produce an annual governance statement in the same way as your authority does. However, as good practice, we review the governance arrangements just so that you have that assurance. And at any point during the year, if you have concerns, you are entitled to contact me directly. You don't have to go through the parking partnership. You don't have to go through Richard or Jake or anybody else. You can come direct to me and have a conversation about any concerns you might have from a governance point of view. And I can give you some advice and guidance, and then also raise any issues with the committee if you'd like me to. So, any questions so far? That's what I'd like to see. What I've brought before you today is the annual review of governance and our internal audit processes. Now, the internal audit of the partnership is carried out primarily by Colchester. You are entitled in your own authorities to carry out internal audit of those arrangements for your areas if you so choose. However, quite a lot of the internal audit managers are happy to rely on our audit process, and copies of the brief and full details can be provided to any of your audit managers. With the governance review, I look at any issues that have been raised as part of Colchester's annual governance statement, and we review all areas of governance, including our payment processes, financial controls, political arrangements. There is nothing in Colchester's annual governance statement that relates to the parking partnership, and indeed we actually mention the parking partnership in our statement, and we talk about the relationship that we have. There's been no concerns raised with me by any of the partners during the year. And there is nothing from the internal audit process that we have in the organisation that looks at our payment processes and our finances that would give me any concerns relating to the parking partnership. On that basis, I'm quite happy to confirm that there are adequate and sufficient arrangements in place for controls in the partnership during the year 2023-24. I have also included for you our internal audit report from 22-23. Because the parking partnership consistently achieves either substantial or reasonable assurance, and substantial is the highest rating you can have under our process, we don't do a full audit every year of the parking partnership. We do it every other year now. So the last one was in 22-23. It was reported to this committee last year. However, I think it's appropriate to raise it with you again today, just so you can see what those issues or concerns were last time. There was just three recommendations. All of those have been implemented to some extent. There may be some issues in terms of the policies and republishing, but that's an ongoing process. So, and I know Richard and the team do that on a rolling basis. So that will always, it's a bit like the Forth Bridge, always doing the policies and updating them. So there is nothing of concern that has been raised during the process during 23-24. There will be a full audit carried out in 24-25, and that will be reported to you this time next year. And it's whether you have any questions.
Okay, do we have any questions from anyone? Mick.
Can I just ask how you have reconciled the operation of the partnership outside of its contractual obligations? Because part of the, I think the contract says, I think it's £400,000, I think, reserve is required to to allow the partnership to implement traffic regulation orders, and that is a matter that has been raised at these meetings several times, I think, over the past year, and it appears to be a fundamental breach of contractual behaviour. So I just wondered how you'd reconcile that within your assessment.
Absolutely, and it's a very fair question, and I'm fully aware of those conversations that have been had during the year. I have attended other committee meetings during the year where the issue has been discussed, and the view that we've drawn is that the matter has been fully raised with the partnership, with the committee. It's not something that has been hidden. It's not something that all partners are not aware of, and decisions have been made at the committee about reasonable actions in light of the situation we're in outside of that contractual relationship. If the committee hadn't been having those conversations and it wasn't documented and there wasn't a consensus of opinion from the partnership, I would then be raising that as an issue, but it has been recognised and has been responded to, and a plan of action is in place relating to it. On that basis, we don't consider that that is something that would breach the controls. It's being looked at and it's being monitored. It's something that from the risk process, that's something to go on the risk register, and that's the next item, and I'll talk about how we highlight those risks and how you can have things added to that going forwards.
Are you happy with that, or would you like to?
I thank you for your answer, and I can see how you've sort of come to that conclusion, but it still doesn't answer the question that we are in a position where we're operating outside of our contractual position, and how do we reconcile that going forward? So I don't think you answered that question, but thank you.
I think that one's something to be reconciled during the year. If the position doesn't improve, then that's a different situation when we get to the end of this financial year.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions? Okay. The recommended decision is the Joint Committee is requested to note the annual governance review of the North Essex Partnership and consider the progress on implementing internal audit recommendations for the North Essex Parking Partnership. Are we happy with those recommendations? Okay, I shall accept those. We move to item 8, which is the annual review of risk management. And you're back on again.
I'm so sorry. You only have to put up with me once a year normally, so, you know, I might as well get it all over and done with. Part of my role, obviously, is risk management and managing the risk process for Colchester and our partnerships and relationships. And with the North Essex Parking Partnership, there is no formal requirement, again, to have a risk management strategy and a defined risk management process. However, it is good practice, and you would be criticised in any external reviews of the arrangement if there wasn't a risk register in place and a process for dealing with risk. You may all have different views of what risk is, and it does vary between organisations. However, our role at Colchester and my role for the partnership is to look at the strategic risks for the partnership. This is not Colchester's risks of being involved in the partnership, and you should all be considering that risk in your own risk registers in your organisations. That's not something for the partnership to consider. The risk register for the partnership is about the strategic issues that may impact on the ability of the partnership to operate effectively in the future. And obviously it's already been highlighted in terms of the situation we're in outside of the contract. It's those sort of issues that should be highlighted on the register. And with the register, what I do is have a conversation with the parking team and talk about any risks or concerns there might be. It is also reported to the client officers at the client officer meeting before the committee meeting to consider the risk register. And the review has been undertaken, and on page 36 I've set out some areas where we are recommending some changes to the risks. However, these are your risks. You don't have to accept those recommendations. You don't have to accept those risks. And it is your opportunity to define what goes on to that risk register. So as I say, there is 3 risks where we are recommending a reduction to the score and the addition of 2 risks. Now, the 2 new ones are the relating to the risk of lack of resilience in specialist roles and the difficulty in recruiting to frontline posts. As part of the risk process, we also put together for you an annual strategy. You don't have to have one, but it's, again, good practice to ensure that you have a strategy in place and just to review it on an annual basis to make sure that it's appropriate to your needs. And that's been attached for you on page 37. So, Chair, it's whether you have any questions or any issues relating to the risks or want to discuss any of the changes that have been made, and obviously if you're happy with them, to endorse the changes so we can formalise the risk register going forwards.
Do we have any questions from anyone?
Yes, it's actually on the bit about when you reduce staffing, you end up with greater risk as you run out of people to do things. Have we got anything which is a single point of failure? Anyone maybe who is the person whose name is on a contract, an arrangement, if that person's not there, you can't do it. We are somewhat conscious of that from my council with our little bins problem, where it was down to one person who failed to do one thing, and then you're blown. And now we've done a review to make sure we do not have any other single points of failure. Does this exist anywhere? And if it doesn't, or should we be looking for it?
It's a very fair question, and that is one of the additional risks in terms of those specialist roles. So it's not necessarily a point of failure on a contract or an individual task. So if someone's off, you can't access a spreadsheet or a piece of data. It's more about the specialisms and the knowledge that's contained by individuals in the roles. Now, Richard will probably be able to answer better than I can in terms of how they've been implementing that process to ensure that there is opportunity for everybody to share that knowledge.
Okay. Would you like to add to that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the question, and very valid. I think we've taken the opportunity during the transformation to ensure that there isn't a single point of failure now. With many more people involved in many more things, because there's fewer specialisms now. Let's start with the agreement. The agreement, I have a deputy, so if I'm indisposed for whatever reason or away and uncontactable, I have a deputy, and that's Jake at the moment, sits to my left, and then Trevor. And we meet as a team, so we share information between us, and we should all know what each other is thinking and planning in that way. So we meet as a vision team, if you like, and then below that we have the next group of managers that we and they meet with, so we share information regularly. I think what Hayley is pointing to there was we have some particular specialisms which are quite difficult to recruit to, particularly around the traffic regulation order process. There's some quite rare skills in some of what we do. So we just need to make sure that we've got a bit of a succession plan and a bit of a backstop as well. And we've taken the opportunity to make sure that there's enough cover remains after we've reduced the size of the organisation, because we have shrunk quite a bit in the last 3 or 4 months now. Yeah, but I'm confident that we share enough information between us, and we're a big enough entity still to that sort of centre of excellence feel to it. Yeah.
You happy with that? Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? So, told that the recommended decisions is that the Joint Committee is requested to endorse the risk assessment strategy for 2024-25. And agree the strategic risk register subject to any requested amendments. Are we happy to do that? Okay. So,
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, committee.
Item 9 is NEPP financial update, including the month 12 outturn for the 23-24 year and budget for the 24-25, which is Chris Hartgrove, who's appeared as if by magic in the seat when I look up.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. I'll keep this brief, and good afternoon, members of the committee, by the way. Item 9 then, which is contained in pages 49 to 52 of your agenda this afternoon. This sets out the month 12 position for the NEPP. In other words, the final outturn for this, the 23-24 financial year. I'm pleased to report a continuation of the stable position reported to the committee since December 23. Most importantly, of course, the anticipated surplus for the financial year did eventually materialise, and combined with the 24-25 adopted budget, the reserve is still expected to return to a surplus position by March 2025. To the detail then, which is summarised on pages 50 and 51. A net surplus of 121,000 was achieved for 23-24, which reduced the deficit on the reserve to 39,000 at the end of March 24. The budgeted contribution to the reserve in 24-25 would see a return to a surplus balance of 66,000 by the 31st of March 2025. The most notable budget variances are presented in paragraph 5.2 on page 50, which shows an underspend or a surplus on the cost of civil enforcement officers and supervision of 135,000. Members of the committee will recall that the surplus here has reduced slightly towards the year end, following the recent successful recruitment drive, although this has had positive impacts elsewhere, which I'll allude to. An overspend or deficit on bad debts of 178,000 has also been incurred, and the committee, however, are reminded that there is currently, or was, should I say, in 23-24, no budgeted contribution to the bad debt provision. We've now rectified that in preparing the 24-25 budget, which was adopted by this committee in February. The eventual contribution steadily increased in the final quarter of the year, which in isolation is a negative, of course. However, that reflected a significant upturn in income from penalty charge notices, which has already been noted earlier in this meeting, and the recent recruitment of civil enforcement officers has therefore had a real and positive impact, as demonstrated by these figures. Finally, there was an overspend or an income shortfall, should I say, on parking charges of 139,000. This budget line actually includes a range of other miscellaneous income items in addition to core income streams such as pay and display charges. There are two significant variances that dominate. Firstly, the 23-24 budget assumed that the NEPP would receive 107,000 from Essex County Council in respect of expanding the Park Safe school camera scheme. That did not come to fruition in the year as expected. And secondly, additional parking consultancy income of 60,000 was assumed in the budget from additional events such as Ride London, which also did not materialise in the year. I'll leave it at that, Chairman, and happy to take any questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Mick?
Thank you, Mr Hargrove. Just a couple of questions on the actual figures. The projected income, you know, we welcome the figures very much. It shows a massive improvement from where we were just only a few months ago. But I've just got a question, and it may be related to the point I raised earlier about the 4-month delay in accrediting income. But in year 11, the actual income from PCNs, and I'll just use the abbreviated figure here, was 1772, and the actual income in this report is 2350. So if you take those away from each other, that means that we've got £578,000 income in the last month, or it has been credited that way. Now, when set against the annual income, if you look at the previous 11 months and average it out, the average income from PCNs was 161,000. That's across the partnership, obviously. And so we went from an average of 161 to an income of 578,000 in a single month. I just wondered whether you could explain that, how that happened. And then a subsequent question about the forecast for next year. We've heard that we've had a couple of representations from members of the public, and we've had some call-ins on the proposed on-street parking charges. So they are, it seems to me, in some doubt about whether they go ahead at all, but certainly about the timescale for delivery. So have you put the £140,000 projected income from those on-street charges, is that in next year's budget, and does it form part of the projections? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that question. I'll defer on the second. I'll take the first question first, but the second question I'll have to defer to Richard on that point. But in answer to your first question, you're right. There was an uptick in terms of penalty charge notices, so there was quite a steep curve in the final quarter. I mean, what I would say is that, to endorse what my colleague Mr. Walker said earlier on, I mean, we were confronted with a position whereby, on the face of it, we had good news emerging in January. One of the options was we could have come forward here with a far more optimistic projection, and then only to be sort of disappointed, if you like, and the following month and come back to you and report, well, say, you know, when we said it was going to be much better, it's not quite as good as we thought it was going to be. So the alternative was potentially oscillating figures. So we did wait not that long, actually, because I think we had this same discussion at the last meeting. So we did release that more positive forecast quite early in the day, not immediately, but still quite early in the day. It was reported to this committee. I recall back in March, I think it was, that Harlow. So it came as no surprise, really, that figure was eventually confirmed in the final outturn. It was an exceptional year, and I would expect a more stable position to happen, subject to any other seasonal fluctuations or what have you throughout the financial year. So yes, the figures oscillated a little bit, but hopefully I think we got it right at the end. Gradually we got closer to the outturn, which is what we set out to do.
Just a point of clarification on that then. So what you're saying is that there was a movement, you know, very positive movement, probably from January onwards, but that you held those figures back from us because you didn't want to be over-optimistic in terms of forecasting that trend continuing. But can you see my point that my council was making a critical decision that was based on those figures, and what I'm hearing now is that we didn't have the full information you know, we were on the verge of leaving. We were 5 days away from putting our notice in based upon the figures that I had in front of me that I was given to my cabinet colleagues. So I'm gobsmacked, amazed, I have to say, that is a sort of management strategy that you feel is legitimate.
I think that's a fair comment. The alternative was that it could have been the other way around, of course, that we could have promised you income that wasn't going to be realised. I mean, one of the, you know, it's an art, not a science. At the end of the day, I'd like to present as accurate as figures as I possibly can do, without recourse to any major surprises, peaks and troughs and that sort of thing. And I hopefully that is the picture that's emerged over the last quarter. Unfortunately, I can't guarantee that forever because it's subject to external influences, but that is hopefully a fairly stable position that was reported in recent months, and hopefully that can continue in 24-25.
Councillor Barry, just to give some reassurance and support my colleague in finance. So after the last meeting, I sent some information over to Andy, which you might be alluding to, but for the benefit of the whole committee. So what we reported within March committee was a month 11 piece in income of £1.772 million. Then what would also report was a year-end forecast outturn of that same budget of 2.273 million. So the difference is a 501k, and as you said, that far outweighs any performance that NEPP has ever done in one single calendar month. So the information that was provided was that that difference comprises of two figures. One, what we expected from piece in income for month 12, and the latter is the year-end debtor. So the second, the latter one of that, is 351k at that time, and that was we'd spoken to our finance business partner, meaning that the PCN income that we would have expected to have achieved that budget was approximately 150k. Now, for context, our month 10 and 11 PCN income was around 170k for each month. So that was information that was shared at the time. And that swing that we get, the year-end swing as we call it, is something I believe has happened every year, and is something that has tricked, maybe the wrong word, but misguided some scrutiny, and is something we've picked up with our finance business partner to try and reflect that during the year rather than it be one lump figure at the end of the year. So again, that might provide some reassurance and clarity as to why there was such a difference there.
I'll just add to that. It's quite difficult to predict that swing when improvements happen. This was unprecedented. We had a change from downward trajectory to a severe upward trajectory right in the last 3 months of the year. And the work that's done in that time, the penalties are issued, aren't all paid in that financial year. They're spread over some time. So we credit back the amount that was due to that financial year. It's very difficult in that last, so you've got this lever effect going on, that you've got to pick some middle ground in there somewhere. And that's exactly what we said, until you're assured of what's going on in that really short time frame, it's quite difficult to forecast for what's actually going to happen, having been on this other trajectory for so long. It's an art and not a science, as my colleague says.
Just a final point then. So the figures we were getting for March or January, the meetings we've had this year, were not the actual figures that you were receiving. Is that what you're saying?
I think to clarify, there was the piece in income that we'd received, but I think what's fair to say is maybe what wasn't captured within that report was the year-end debtor figure, which, until the year is complete, we don't accurately know what that is, but it was estimated at that point in time, following clarity with Chris and our finance business partner, that it was about 350k, I think I remember, 351k. Yeah.
I'm struggling to understand this. This year-end debtor thing. You have debt provisions for what you think you're not going to collect, and those now they're in here and they'll be rolling on each time. I'm guessing the percentage is really quite consistent. I can't understand why this should suddenly come good in the last month of the year. Do we suddenly decide, oh, all these are being paid that we didn't expect to be paid? Is that really? Do people suddenly look at March and suddenly say, oh, I better pay this thing that's, because you don't pay, as you know, if you don't pay within 14 days, it's double. And after that, if you don't pay, you end up in court. But most people, I think, either challenge, pay straight away, or at least pay promptly. I don't think people, it seems odd.
I think the officer would like to respond to that. No, that's fine.
Yeah, sorry, just to give a sort of technical observation. I'm long-standing members of the committee will realise that I'm relatively new here and sort of getting up to speed with how things work at the NEPP. As Mr. England has said, there is a year-end debtor process in place, and the size of that debtor previously would have been relatively small because it's a function of the amount of penalty charge notices that are issued. So if one goes up, then the other goes up, and so it's relatively new territory in terms of forecasting, given that the council, the partnership has struggled in terms of penalty charge notice income in recent years. So the quality of the forecast around that debtor could have been better with the benefit of hindsight, but I would emphasise that the overall position is not much different from what we were forecasting at months 9, 10 and 11. So there hasn't been much change. It's been very stable, but I agree there is room for improvement in terms of forecasting on that point.
So this is a reversal of an over-provision. It's a reversal of an over-provision for bad debts.
No, it's unrelated to bad debts. It's the opposite. It's money that's owed, owed but not received in the year.
So, just for my own clarification, do we actually say when we give these figures that it's a projected figure, or are we say or make an assumption that that will be the figure?
We produce a forecast every month as to what the year-end position will be.
So in other words, it's a, putting it in layman's terms, it's a guesstimated figure as a projection. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions on this item? Oh dear.
Thank you, Chair. Chris, just on the outturn 5.2, the first paragraph, I know you got 135k of savings due to vacancies, and of note there you've got several vacancies have now been filled. Is the intention to fill all the vacancies, and will that then have an impact on those figures for next year, or is it to stay at the current status? Thank you.
So there's a report later on covering exactly that, but yeah, we can save it for them. But in summary, it's our intention to fill all positions within the new organisational structure, but obviously there's been a reduction in the number of overall positions, which I'll highlight when we come to that point in the report, but that's coming later on.
Okay, thank you. You had another point?
Yes, it's on the budgeting for pay increases. The note says 2 previous years the increases were above budget, and it's saying for this year that's likely to happen again, could happen again. So it's 3 years in a row that it's been under budgeted. I know inflation rocketed away perhaps unexpectedly. When inflation stays at 2%, it may not be an issue. But I know that NEPP has got to stick with Colchester's budgeting arrangement because it's part of, you can't go AWOL and make your own decision. But if this arrangement where people on the lower grades are given the lump sum rather than the percentage, which means if we've got perhaps enforcement officers who are perhaps on the lower grades and make up quite a number of the staff, is NEPP possibly being under budgeted because of its staff mix? So if this continues, this is going to happen again. Maybe can some factor in this next year's budget, which must be work on budgets must be starting shortly. Perhaps can't be factored in, so we don't have a fourth year where it's under budgeted.
Simple answer is we can take that into consideration. I can't give you a guarantee here and now on that. We'll be turning to the 25-26 budget process in the coming weeks, you know. So, but I hear what you say, and I think we've had 2, maybe 3 years, is it now, with lump sum settlements. The eventual outcome of that is it will erode differentials. So there's a view that it can't go on forever. We're going to be back to percentage increases. So with the benefit of hindsight again, you're absolutely right, of course. We would have prepared for lump sums, and that applies to the wider council, and including the NEPP as well. So it's certainly something that we'll consider this time, but I understand what you're saying.
Do you have any other questions?
Our second question, go back to your other question.
Yep, okay.
Thanks, Chairman. The question of the pay and display, pay to park income. There's no good answer to this, is there? Because we're trying to forecast something that may or may not happen in the future that we've kind of decided but not yet decided. So we're waiting on a future couple of decisions. The answer is that it was a conservative budget to start with, very conservative budget. It's going back a couple of stages. The thing isn't there to make money either, is it? The thing is there to gain efficiencies and manage the curbside space more effectively. So the income budget is you know, a by the way thing, but it was conservative when I estimated it. I ran some figures to do that, and it's seasonal as well, to a larger degree in some of these cases. So yeah, it's an estimate. We have to put a forecast in for something. Otherwise, you know, we're baseless, aren't we? So that's what we did. We have an estimate in there for it.
Any other questions?
Where we had budget provision in the forecast for income from events like Ride London and also the school parking enhancing and more work being done there, have we taken those out of the budget provision going forwards to make sure it doesn't happen again? And is it anything, and is Essex County Council accountable for some of that? Did they tell us that we were going to get enhanced work and then just not deliver it, or did we just make an assumption that they would roll out more of the school parking so we would get more income? Can we just talk about that? Because I think that's quite important. That's quite a lump of cash that we didn't get.
I'll come in on the first point. So yes, in short, they've been removed from the budget. ParkSafe schools cameras, as per the business plan that was taken to the February meeting, we're postponing that service completely until such time as we review the business case to make sure that there's financial sustainability within that system. The other one, so the consulting work, we've reduced our budgets across both the operations side and the technical side where they apply. And in fact, we're at a point in year where we've already achieved the budgets that we've set. So anything above and beyond that essentially now is, again, it comes back to Chris's point. We've been very prudent, in our budget setting. I'll let Richard come in on the point about county.
Thank you. Yes, with the county situation, it's changed, haven't they? I was promised an amount of money. I sat in a meeting where there was some money available to do this, and we set I suppose our error was setting up the system to wait to get this money delivered. But plans change, finances changed massively, didn't they, during that post-pandemic period? And like any amount of money which is there, it unfortunately disappeared. Now, I don't know, Joe, if you can add anything else to that, but plans change all the time. We have to react to changing circumstances in the finances of local authority.
I was going to add, we worked with yourselves on a trial, looking at the trial, and it at this point isn't financially sustainable. So that was the sort of major factor really there.
I still find it disappointing though, and I'm not trying to be critical, but £107,000 or whatever the figure is, that's quite substantive. And to make an assumption that we go out and do a load of recruitment, which I think is what happened. I think I remember that February meeting where we'd literally, as you say, literally set up and recruited people to do this role or bought cars or whatever it was we did. That's significant money, public money, that we had assumed. And I don't wish to be critical of Essex County Council, but my experience of them isn't always positive, I'm afraid, of it from a highways point of view. And I think that's just another example. Or the machines down in Clacton where stuff just happens outside of the agreement. I mean, it just doesn't set a very good cultural fit or a good example, I think, in public. And I think we need to stop that behaviour and just ensure that we're much closer so that we don't have other authorities going rogue and doing what they think they can do when actually they shouldn't do. And we need to make sure that's fixed. I don't think that's very good behaviour, and I want to see that stopped because that's caused a massive hole in public finances from that kind of behaviour, culture and things changing.
I would just add that there wasn't a formal instruction to go and recruit. Okay.
Do we have any other comments? Questions? Okay. The recommendations are to note the outturn for 23-24 as of 31st of March 24, month 12. And to note the impact on the parking reserve balance. Are we happy to do that? Okay, thank you. Move to item 10, update on fees, charges, delegations and policies, which is Richard Walker.
Thank you. I don't make too much of the point. This is really about reassuring that things are going, as Hayley mentioned earlier in the meeting, we bring policies back at different stages to have a review. And I just want to restate the policies that there are, some of the delegations that are in place, just to be completely open and transparent about them, and be certain about the fees and charges that we decided previously, which are being implemented and rolled out. So let's take these in order. We match the tariffs to nearby car parks. So where we've got on-street pay and display, they match the car parks that are nearby. So if it's a car park just around the corner, the pay and display on-street matches that. That was a decision taken some time ago, and the details are in here. The fees and charges plan, which was part of the recovery plan, was set out, I think, the year before last now, and we're in the second year of implementation out of 4 there, so that's on the go now. And then the policies and the delegations I've noted in the appendix there, just to show you what we've decided in the past, what our policies are and when we bought them before, to show this rolling policy check at this committee. And you can see that we've brought them back on a regular basis, and there are links back to the papers where those decisions have been made. I was keen to get everything in the same place for my own information as much as anything else, just so that we can see which ones we've done recently and in what order they've come. Not doing too much at this meeting because the agenda's fairly packed today. The AGM is always a longer meeting anyway, but we'll start to do that again at the other meetings during the year as we have in the past.
Do we have any comments, questions?
It's just on the way the delegations work, particularly the on-street tariffs, moving them to be in line with the off-street, which we've got some which definitely do need doing. Does the delegation, is it this committee delegating to officers just to do it, or does that mean that these things don't have to go through a consultation the same way as all the other changes go through, like we've done for off-street parking?
Yes, they do have to go through the shortcut consultation process. So it's the notice of variation process as these will go through. So it's advertised, but there's no feedback part to the consultation in the 1996 regs, I think it is, that we use for those, where we're changing only the price. They still have to be advertised, but the committee has delegated that because they need to match the nearby car parks, that consultation should just go and happen anyway.
Finally, may I record my pleasure that we have a temporary cones policy. I feel I feel so relieved on that.
Be amazed if we didn't.
Do we have any other questions or comments? Okay, so this is item 10, and the recommendations are to decide that delegations made previously should continue, to note the decision to match on-street tariffs to nearby car parks to be made under existing delegations, and to note the recent changes to be implemented subject to 1.1 and the final 1.3, sorry, to note that the plan for fees and charges decided previously, currently in year 2, and continue its implementation. And finally, to note the policies which are in place and the plan and mechanism for updates. Are we happy with that? Okay, thank you very much. We now move to item 11, on-street paid parking, to consider improving the advertising of a number of paid parking sites across Colchester and Epping Forest area. And this is Jake England.
Thanks, Chair. Okay, so this is a continuation of 2 reports that have come to the committee previously. So the last one was in March in Harlow, where following the call-in we clarified what that enhanced informal consultation would be, and then the committee also agreed the priority in which we process the consultations of the sites. So just to recap, we agreed starting with Epping Forest and Colchester. Once they were resolved, we'll come over to Harlow and then finish up with the Braintree sites. Pleased to report that most of Colchester and Epping Forest sites are now done, and the results of which are contained within the appendices of the report. So hopefully you've taken the time to review those. And again, we were just asking the committee to approve those sites to progress to the formal consultation stage. So again, this isn't a decision to put it in. This is a decision following what was asked previously to put it through to the formal consultation side of the process. Any questions?
Chairman, thank you. I just want to take the opportunity, as I'm here, to make a comment on the proposals for on-street paid parking. I appreciate that my district, Braintree, is not up for discussion today at the moment. Also appreciate that there are budgetary reasons for doing this. There are budget gaps that need closing, and I also understand that this is a sort of pre-consultation consultation. No final decisions are made yet. I absolutely get that. I will say that considerable concern is already being expressed in my district on the prospect of paid parking on street. For example, Halstead Town Council are really worried that if this is extended to their town, that it will have a severe impact on the economic viability. It will affect small businesses and so on. So word is already getting around that this is possibly going to happen, and they are really worried about it. It's not just Houston. I think we heard at the start of the meeting, gentlemen from Whittam and also Colchester with similar concerns. I do think if there is the opportunity to consider at the very least offering the first hour free to allow people, if they want to do a quick shop or have a coffee or both, to do that without the impact of having to pay, that is something that could be considered. I don't think that would be particularly difficult to implement or monitor. Just wanted to get that point across as I'm here and have the opportunity today, Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have any other comments? I wondered particularly on Colchester and Epping Forest because it directly affects those. Yeah.
Yeah, I raised a lot of concerns about this. They've all been taken into account. Very little feedback, so I think I'm very comfortable to take these forward. Some of the other schemes have been dropped as well anyway as inappropriate, so I'm comfortable that we can go forward as agreed.
And Epping Forest?
We've got no objections and comfortable with everything as well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. So with that, the recommendation is the Joint Committee is requested to approve the advertising of additional on-street paid parking sites in the Colchester and Epping Forest areas as outlined in the report. Are we happy with that? Okay, thank you very much. It's just been whispered in my ear. Would anyone like to break for a few minutes? Yes? Okay. I wonder if there was a signal across the room then at all. Okay, we'll take a 2-minute break. Thank you everyone for that. In the break, it was pointed out to me that we need to take a vote on the last item, which is something I missed, but I have been duly corrected. So if we could vote on that, those in favour? Is anyone against? Do we have any abstentions? Okay, yes, thanks very much for that. So now we move to item 12, which is NEPP Transformation Update Report. And this is Jake England again.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so no voting on this one, just to note. So it's asked from client officers and members alike from previous meetings, just a feedback on our transformation programme. So transformation is just a posh word for a restructure. I'll go through quickly, but just in summary, we had a structure before of 91 and a half full-time equivalent positions, 28 posts and 3 teams. And we've subsequently reduced that down to 76 and a half positions and 15 posts. So to emphasise the rationalising of those posts, there's a 46% reduction in posts overall in the partnership, but the number of positions overall is reduced by 21%. There is an example of the old organisational structure in Appendix A, and then what the new one is in named Appendix D. I do apologise, it should be named Appendix C, so there's a typo from me. What we proposed and the change management process, that can all be found in Appendix B if you want to take a read of that, but ultimately that just summarises all the nuances and changes within our organisational structure. You're probably asking what's happened with, across those people that were put at risk. So we had 19 employees at risk of redundancy to begin with. 13 of those secured a permanent role within the NEPP. 1 fixed-term role, 1 redeployed elsewhere within the council, and 4 of those original 19 remain at risk of redundancy and are seeing out through their notice period, some of which are also keen they are being redeployed elsewhere in the council and applying for other opportunities. So yeah, that's about it. Happy to take any questions from anybody.
Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you. Just scanning through, and I didn't see it before, and I can't see it now. But have you got the impact of that financially? Obviously, I touched on that on the financial report question, when there was a 135k saving, and then we said that vacancies been done. Obviously, you've detailed in there. I appreciate what you've explained, and a 21% reduction in staff. So, what does that mean financially for what the budget's going to look like going forward? Thank you.
Yeah, so the impact is a little bit complicated because some of those posts we share charge them basically to on-street and off-street services. So Braintree, Ottersford, Harlow and Colchester, our CEOs, our civil enforcement officers, they enforce on-street and off-street interchangeably. But a proportion of those are charged off to the off-street agreements. But ignoring that split, the reduction in posts is around about £500,000 worth of salaries and employer contributions, so pension and national insurance contributions from the employer. So it's quite a significant amount. However, we did have a considerable number of vacancies within the organisational structure when we went into the restructure. So that's not necessarily to say that's a direct saving on the budgets, because we were already saving that by not recruiting to that vacancy. Yeah, in terms of we essentially come out of this meeting in February with the budget being agreed, the business plan being agreed, and then the salaries and the structure, mindful of the pay award that we anticipated as well as was discussed earlier. We then built the structure within those parameters. So that's kind of a bit of a whistle-stop tour of the history of it all. But hopefully that makes sense.
Do we have any other comments, questions? Okay, this item 12, so the recommendation is to note the changes to the organisational structure implemented under the NEPP transformation programme. Are we happy to do that? Okay, thank you very much. Item 13, report setting out parking provisions in the Essex Act. And this is Richard Walker.
It's me. So Essex has its own act, and rather unusually in the country, there's not many others. I think Devon has one of these for Exeter, but that's about it. And the act, the bit that we're talking about, has been decriminalised as well, so we have our own PCN code that doesn't apply anywhere else. The Essex Act is interesting if you get a chance to have a read through it. It covers all manner of things that you wouldn't understand about just general stuff that isn't in legislation anywhere else. But the item of particular interest here that I was asked to expand upon was this piece insofar as it relates to mown and ornamental verges. And you'll notice the report that's attached is quite old. In fact, it's so old it's not in our internet archive of reports. I had to go out and find it in some very old backup that we've got. So I've included the old report because we didn't have a copy of it online. So essentially what this means is that if there's some land that's accessible from the highway, which is kept in a mown and ornamental condition, and that's the important point here, that's not just flailed a couple of times a year, but it's kept mown or kept in an ornamental condition with flowers, etc., daffodils in part of the year or something like that, then we can prohibit parking on there. And the prohibition is done by notice, and the notice is a traffic sign, and the details of that are in the report. And it's pretty much as simple as that. We tend to map the area so that we know what we're talking about. So it's like a traffic regulation order, but it doesn't actually need the traffic regulation order to back it up. The land can be district council land. It can still be highway, and there are some other things that you probably should have if you're going on to mow the verge on the highway. But I expect you have that if you're doing that mowing already. And the issue of a PCN isn't consequential on having that section 50 notice. That's just what you need to do that work. So essentially you can do any of these things. Now, we rehearsed the budget position previously, and there isn't any money set aside for doing this. There isn't a budget set aside for doing this, but if districts have an amount of money and they have a problem, then come to us and here's a solution for it.
Do we have any questions, comments?
We've already done this extensively in Colchester and it works extremely well, and I like putting these signs up, and it does of course create an income for the NEPP at the same time, because people get a parking ticket and they've got to pay it. So it does actually work and stops your grass verges looking like mud quite quickly. And in fact I've requested 2 more areas in my area to have them put up, which I paid for out of my locality budget. So it's definitely something that I'd recommend to other districts if you have got problems with verge parking. It's very cheap and simple to fix and gets an income. So I highly recommend it.
Can I echo that? I had no idea about this, but can I suggest this be publicised to also maybe down to parish, or to perhaps the district councils, and allow them to suggest they pass it out to parish councils. They've got all the email addresses. There will be situations where this does apply, and the concept that A, it protects the verge, and B, it brings in income is a bit of a win-win.
Okay, from what we're saying then, we do have a recommendation, but could we add another line to that so that we can cascade this down
as well?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Does anyone else have any comments? Yes?
Just to note that my colleague who I'm substituting for today is very, very keen on this this act, and has given me great detail on it. And I know we're running a pilot scheme in NEPP Forest, and are looking to, hopefully this will be successful, and so we'll roll out. So very reassuring that it's working elsewhere. I think it's going to be very good for everyone. Thank you.
Okay, so we've got the recommendation at the moment under 13 is to note the provisions in the Essex Acts which relate to parking, and then can we add some wording that ensure that information on this is passed down? Do you want to go to obviously district councils, etc., but do you want to go down to town and parish as well? Yeah. So can we come up with some wording to put that in? Yeah. Yes. Okay, are we all happy with that? Okay, thank you very much. That moves us on to item 14, which is the forward plan 2024 to 2025, which is Owen Howell.
Thanks, Chair. Members will be glad to know that I've got nothing to add to this except to say that as part of the approval of the work programme, what I'll do is add in the 2 items on potential changes to the NEPP agreement onto the 14th of November. That's the next agenda. So if members are happy to approve that, if there are any issues with timing, if it doesn't turn out to be possible, we can always look at putting it back again, but I'll suggest putting it on for that agenda now.
So any other comments or questions on this item? Okay, all right. So the recommendation on this item is to note and approve the North Essex Parking Partnership Forward Plan for 2024-25. And we're happy to do that. Okay, thank you very much. I think that's the last item on my agenda. So I'd like to thank you all for your time in coming along to this meeting and for your input. And I look forward to seeing you all at the next meeting. Thank you.